World War III would not begin with a dramatic explosion or a sudden global announcement. It would begin quietly, through a series of decisions, misunderstandings, and obligations that slowly pull multiple powerful countries into the same conflict. In this video, we're going to explain what could realistically trigger a global war and what that process would mean for the United States. Every few years, headlines claim the world is closer than ever to World War III. These headlines are designed to create urgency and fear, but they rarely explain how global wars actually begin. This video is not a prediction, and it is not a warning of something inevitable. It is a calm, fact-based explanation grounded in history, modern geopolitics, and the systems that govern how powerful countries respond to crises. To understand what could trigger World War III, we first need to understand how past world wars began. World War I did not start because countries wanted a global conflict. It started because a regional crisis activated alliances, mobilizations, and fears that leaders believed they could not ignore. World War II followed a similar pattern, where local aggression escalated as other powers felt compelled to respond. The key lesson is this: world wars begin when conflicts expand faster than diplomacy can contain them. At the center of this risk today are military alliances. The United States is part of NATO, a defensive alliance made up of more than 30 countries across North America and Europe. NATO's purpose is deterrence, meaning it exists to prevent attacks by making the cost of aggression too high. However, deterrence comes with binding commitments. Under Article 5 of NATO's founding treaty, an attack on one member is considered an attack on all. This does not automatically mean war, but it does mean that the United States would be obligated to respond in some form. In a crisis, these obligations compress decision-making timelines and reduce flexibility. A conflict that begins between two countries can therefore escalate into a much larger confrontation. Not because leaders want escalation, but because failing to respond could weaken alliances and invite further aggression. Beyond alliances, geography plays a major role in escalation risk. Certain regions of the world are far more likely to draw in major powers because of their strategic importance. Eastern Europe is one such region. Tensions involving Russia and NATO countries are particularly sensitive because military forces operate in close proximity. Military exercises, troop movements, or border incidents can be misread as preparations for attack. In this environment, even defensive actions can be interpreted as offensive threats. Another high-risk area is East Asia, particularly Taiwan. Taiwan is critical to global trade and technology supply chains, and it sits at the center of US-China strategic competition. Any conflict there would immediately involve American interests, regional allies, and global economic stability. This makes the region a potential trigger point for a broader confrontation. Multiple global powers operate there simultaneously, often supporting opposing sides. Conflicts can escalate through retaliation, proxy forces, and misjudgments, pulling in allies and outside actors. Importantly, none of these regions guarantee a world war, but they represent environments where escalation is faster and more difficult to control. Another critical factor in how wars begin is miscalculation. History shows that leaders often make decisions based on incomplete or incorrect information. False intelligence, technical errors, and misinterpreted actions have nearly triggered catastrophic outcomes in the past. When tensions are low, these errors can be corrected through communication. When tensions are high, the same errors can be interpreted as hostile intent. This creates pressure to act quickly. Sometimes before diplomacy has time to work, nuclear weapons add another layer of complexity. They are one of the strongest deterrents against direct war between major powers. At the same time, they raise the stakes of every crisis. Because nuclear weapons are so destructive, leaders may fear losing the ability to respond later. This fear can shorten decision-making windows and increase the risk of escalation during moments of uncertainty. This is why communication channels between nuclear-armed states are essential, even during periods of hostility. From a United States perspective, a global war would not begin suddenly or without warning. There would be signs long before open conflict. Diplomatic relations would deteriorate, military readiness levels would increase, and economic impacts would begin to appear through markets and supply chains. The US government invests heavily in preventing these scenarios because a global war would affect every aspect of American life, from the economy to national security to global leadership. Avoiding escalation is not a sign of weakness. It is a recognition of the scale of potential consequences. It is also important to understand that global systems are designed not only to fight wars, but to prevent them. Alliances, deterrence strategies, international institutions, and diplomacy exist to manage competition without catastrophe. They are imperfect, but they have prevented direct conflict between major powers for decades. World War III is not inevitable. The risk exists, but so do powerful incentives to avoid it. Understanding how wars could begin helps explain why caution, communication, and restraint matters so much in international politics. World wars do not start in a single moment. They build slowly through pressure, fear, miscommunication, and a series of decisions that narrow options over time. If you want calm, clear explanations of global risks without panic or sensationalism, consider subscribing. Understanding the world is the first step to navigating an uncertain future.